Are you ready to roll?
Canoeing on an island.
All right.
Camping on an island.
Hi, everyone. So before I officially call the meeting to order, I'll just quickly run down what our agenda includes this evening. We have BevCam ready to roll. Thank you very much, Kim. And we have 3 public hearings this evening. They are scheduled for 7:20, 7:45, and 8:15. So we will potentially be taking other business between those items. Anybody who may or may not be speaking at a time when one of those comes up, I will apologize in advance. I'll have to interrupt you briefly so we can open the hearing at its posted time. We have some regular business that we will attend to. We also have a presentation from our City Finance Director, Brian Ailes, and our ARPA Manager, Cindy Dalton. We have 1 citizen speaker, and then we will take a break for some committee work as well. So with that, I'll call to order this regular meeting of the Beverly City Council, Monday, October 3rd, 2022, 7 o'clock p.m. Ms. Kent, will you please call the roll?
Bowen? Here. Crowley?
Here.
Feldman? Here. Houseman?
Here.
Rand? Here. Rotundo?
Here.
St. Hilaire?
Here.
Sweeney?
Here.
And Flowers.
Here. Thank you very much, Ms. Kent. Councilor Bowen, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, Councilor Bowen. I do want to go right to our presentations, awards, and memorials, because as I said, we have a 7:20 hearing, so I want to make sure we do have time. So I will invite our Finance Director, Brian Ailes, and ARPA Manager, Cindy Dalton, to come up to the podium. And as they're going, I will just quickly acknowledge a few other folks in the room with us. We have Assistant City Solicitor Beth Mcpherson here with us this evening right now. City Planning Director Darlene Nguyen is here with us, and our City Council Budget Analyst, Mr. Jerry Perry, is here, and in the back row in her familiar seat, Ward 6 School Committee Member Lorinda Visnick. So thank you all for being here with us this evening. With that, Ms. Dalton, I don't want to take away any more of your time. We'll go right to you, and thank you for being here to present to us.
Great, thank you for having me. Good evening, I'm Cindy Dalton. I am the ARPA Manager here at the City of Beverly. I've been with the city since June, so still fairly new, but finally have the ground under my feet. I'm here today to give you a quick overview of the process of the ARPA program and a preview of our plans moving forward. All right. So simply put, the American Rescue Plan Act funds were provided to communities to support response to and recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic. Grantees have been empowered to tailor these funds to the needs specific to their community, with a focus on public health, economic recovery and development, and supporting residents in need. We report use of these funds back to the Treasury, and we also have these reports available on our website, and we'll be also doing periodic project updates. This chart here, it represents our planned expenditures by category. So there are the allocation decisions are driven by efforts to balance the needs of the city and its residents, while also using the funds in the most effective way to make the biggest possible difference with these limited funds. Oh, it didn't have my labels. We had some technical difficulties. I will just describe. So the darkest section there represents our expenditures to date. It's about 18% of the funds. The slice there to the left are the planned expenditures from now through the end of the calendar year, which is another 9%. So all told, just under 30%. And then the remaining 73% is what is yet to be expended. So the City of Beverly has received $12.6 million. The final rule from the Treasury came out in April, which was effectively the start date for most communities to start spending funds. It was particularly difficult to start allocating things prior to the publishing of this final rule. At the same time, the beginning of ARPA funds also overlapped with the wrapping up of the CARES and the FEMA funds. So a lot of communities went with a first in, first out to make sure we're fully expending the awards before digging into this new funding source. So we've already gone over that. So we are within our timeline to expend our funds in a timely manner, and I'll explain a bit more in these next few slides. All right, so as you saw on the planned expenditure slide 2 slides ago, the city has set aside a large portion of the ARPA funds for improvements to the Mcpherson Youth Center. This vital facility is in need of renovation to increase capacity and versatility of programming. The public health costs have largely supported testing and vaccination efforts. The landscape is ever-changing. We are still grappling with this virus. So we've set aside a contingency of funds to allow us to navigate it and make quick pivots as we go over this next year. The small business and nonprofit communities have really faced a lot of challenges in the last few years. In addition to the challenges of 2020, both sectors have faced inflation and the continuing monetary and staffing efforts of the pandemic. Additionally, nonprofits have faced fundraising shortfalls and had difficulties maintaining volunteers. On to our projects. The small business grants were an important early program to help our businesses continue to stabilize and recover from the various economic challenges since March 2020. 59 businesses were granted over $1.8 million in grant funds, and most of that funding has been used on payroll, rent, and utilities. About 89% of these funds have already been distributed, with the remaining 11% to be paid out probably over the next coming weeks as businesses submit their final documentation. The nonprofit grants, again, we're having a little bit of technical difficulties with labels here. We're finalizing our nonprofit grant program awards. We'll be funding approximately $1.3 million to local organizations who are working to support the people of Beverly. The awardees have not been notified yet, so I do have to keep this a little bit general, but the chart here shows the approximate the awards by their type of services. So youth services will be about 43%, economic development about a quarter, anti-poverty at about 16%, with the remaining being various other types of nonprofit. We talked about the public health initiatives earlier. This slide has some pieces of data for the ARPA portion. Additional state and federal funds have been expended to support public health programs prior to the ARPA money being implemented. So this is just a small portion of public health expenditures overall. We do a few additional projects. They were a little bit shorter lived. They've started and been wrapped up. The Artist in Residence program was a pilot based on support for both the arts and for downtown for economic development. We also had our welcome desk, which was a great help in safely reopening City Hall to the public. We've now moved beyond the need for this service, and it was concluded in July. Now for what you've been waiting for, the upcoming projects. As I mentioned earlier, the Mcpherson Youth Center project will be the largest ARPA undertaking. This project supports several ARPA priorities in addition to improving a vital resource for the city. As a capital project, this renovation will also have the longest timeline of the ARPA projects, but the positive impacts will last many years. And this slide also has our anticipated timeline. The pandemic's impact on the youth has been a much discussed topic, and we wanted to respond adequately to their needs. The Summer Learning Loss Prevention Program listed here, the goals will be similar to the existing summer literacy program. Due to ARPA regulations, this program has to be procured according to federal regulations, and that will likely take place over the winter. In addition to the academic challenges brought on and the unexpected transition to remote learning, the pandemic has brought with it the stress on families and also social emotional challenges for students. There have been reports of increased need for mental health services and other supportive services for children and adolescents. The city is exploring partnerships with local organizations to provide this kind of support for Beverly's youth. This program will be in addition to the previously named nonprofit grants who might be undertaking similar activities. Technology support. This is apropos because we are in the room. So the city is planning to purchase and install new hybrid meeting technology to improve the usability both for in-person participants as well as remote participants. The tech will be installed here in the chambers and will be available after the renovation of City Hall as well. And this is, once again, the planned budget for the ARPA funds. I do want to quickly address the infrastructure line item. Originally, the plan was to use these funds for the Beckford Street project, as well as for some paving at Lynch Park. However, due to the federal procurement regulations, we kind of swapped some things around, and the ARPA funding will instead be used to support the Corny and Spring Street work, with the other projects being funded elsewhere. And that's the end of what I have for you. I will share this PowerPoint with you all after, so you can have a little more time with it as well. What's that? Sure. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Ms. Dalton, and thank you, Mr. Ailes, for assisting with getting these to the counselors. Counselors, we have about 10 minutes, so I'll open it up to questions. I am going to hold it to that time frame and just would encourage us, if there's questions we don't get to, you certainly can reach out directly to Cindy as well as Mr. Ailes, and we can invite them back for an update in the coming weeks. Are there questions from the council for Ms. Dalton on the presentation?
Thank you. Always have a question. Thank you so much for the update. It's great to see both the progress to date and more about the plans. I'm particularly excited to see some of the youth services in addition to the youth infrastructure. So my question is just about another category that I know we've chatted a little bit about, which is supporting affordable housing work. And just curious if there are further discussions where those might fit, or how much of that might fit under the nonprofit awards, if that's part of the anti-poverty work, or any other ways that this funding can help address some of the housing needs.
Do you want to take this, or you want me to take it?
We can tag team if you want to.
Sure. Yeah, so at this moment, we don't really have a plan for too much with affordable housing. One of the challenges, of course, is 12.6 million sounds like it's a lot of money, and it is, but it also doesn't go as far as we all would like it to. And if we were going to undertake a program, we want to really give it the funding it needs to be impactful. And there really isn't an effective mechanism at this point for us to do those kinds of allocations. Let's see. Is this part of the COA stuff that the mayor was talking about earlier?
Well, the COA stuff's a little bit different, but
He was talking about housing.
yeah, we are working with some local area nonprofits around some of the senior needs around affordable housing. We're beginning those discussions now to try to see if there's partnerships we can't forge to begin to provide possibly some outreach coordination for the senior population within our community. You may recall too that many of you voted for the CPC, the Community Preservation Committee, allocated a pool of funds available for rental assistance for affordable housing and those in need. And that was utilized a little bit, not to the extent we had hoped. And so those are some examples of things that we are doing to help address that. But as Cindy said, it's very difficult when you have the limited resources to try to put it in a place where it's most impactful and can have kind of exponential effect that can stimulate some of the areas, because we all agree the need is far greater than these resources provide. So that's just kind of some of our thinking around it. Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Bowen. Thank you very much. Are there other questions from the council for Ms. Dalton about our ARPA fund update? Okay. All right. Any closing remarks or comments, Ms. Dalton or Mr. Ailes, on this topic?
Short and sweet. Thanks for having me here. We do have several updates on our website as well. You can navigate to that. And if any additional questions that you think of later, please don't hesitate to reach out. And if there's enough that's pertinent, I'll make sure everybody knows the answer.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your presentation and your time, and I think we would love to have you back in the coming weeks just for an update and further conversation as well.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. So this gives us just about enough time. We do have one citizen speaker who signed up with the clerk before 9:30 a.m. this morning. That is Lorinda Visnick, 39 Middlebury Lane. Ms. Visnick, if you would repeat your name and address for the record when you get to the podium, and then as you know, you have up to 5 minutes to address the council, which is just perfect.
Awesome. Thank you, Madam President. Name is Lorinda Visnick. I live at 39 Middlebury Lane. And before I speak to what I really came to talk about, I wish to acknowledge the land on which I stand. As we gather here in this place, we acknowledge and honor the original indigenous inhabitants of this land, the Namakaw and Pawtucket bands of the Massachusetts Tribal Nation, which continues today through membership of the Massachusetts Tribe. We acknowledge their ancestral and continued connection to the land. We also recognize our obligations to this land to better environmental care and stewardship, to which the indigenous people who care for it have long called us. As we work towards diversity, equity, and inclusion, we acknowledge the importance of lifting up and inviting in many voices, including those of the indigenous people, and of including those voices and perspectives in our discourse, in our decision-making, and in our actions. Thank you for having me here this evening. I came tonight with a request for this body, inspired by last Tuesday night's, I think it was a legal affairs meeting that took place right over there. And basically, I walked away from that meeting thinking there was some incredible information that was conveyed and exchanged. And with all due respect to whoever was taking minutes, which are not yet even available because they're not yet approved, blah, blah, blah. We have that on the school committee as well, so I understand the delay there. And with all due respect to the local reporter who was in attendance, not nearly enough of the information from that meeting is known and made available to the general public. For instance, why is it that my ward councillor cannot move this motion forward alone? Why is it that the master plan is not yet available? How does this idea fit into the bigger master plan and the planning that took place before COVID? What role does the planning board play with respect to this idea? And what impact could such a change make to those who have, by right, the right to build something on their property? There is much information that all of you live, eat, breathe, and all the time, especially as you work here very late nights and communicate with the city solicitor and often other experts. I caution you that many who live here would love to be aware of some of those nuggets of knowledge, and if we could have our meetings like the last one last week in this room and have our wonderful BevCam community access television televise those meetings, that would go a long way towards helping to share valuable information. I recognize that not all committee work can be televised, especially when multiple committees meet at once. Some of you get shipped out to the bench over there, and some of you put in that room. But even when there's a meeting here, I think you don't broadcast it. It goes on recess.
We broadcast.
We do now? Okay, so that's an advantage, and I know you rotate those. But that meeting wasn't broadcast, and it wasn't in this room. So my request is that you please consider putting as many of the committee work meetings in this room and broadcast them as possible, because one small itty-bitty good thing that we learned from COVID is that many more people join meetings from home when afforded that opportunity. And just last week, Centerville's PTO meeting was held, and they chose to hold it via Google Meet. It could have very well have been in person, but they have learned that far more people attend when they offer it on Google Meet, and they do so from home while they're cooking dinner and taking care of their children, etc. So thank you for your time and your service to our community. Thank you also to all of those who showed up the other day to help with the fall frolic. It was lovely seeing all of you there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Visnick, for being here with us and for your time and for your comments. And thank you, Kim and BevCam, for being a great resource. I think for the reasons mentioned, it is a great resource to be able to share with the public as things are happening. This brings us exactly to 7:20. Look at us go. So with that, I will open our posted public hearing, our 7:20 hearing on Order 220. Ms. Kent.
City of Beverly ordered that the City Council of the City of Beverly hold a public hearing on Monday, October 3rd, 2022 at 7:20 PM at 191 Cabot Street, 3rd floor, Council Chambers, live on BevCam, relative to the transfer of $100,000 to perform final cleanup of the former Briscoe Middle School and to perform preliminary engineering work related to the construction of the pickleball court at the Birch playing fields. And this was published in the newspaper on September 23rd.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kent. And this is also a good time for me to just mention that any members of the public who would like to speak, not only in this public hearing, but any of the other two that are posted for 7:45 and 8:15, there are sign-up sheets to speak in front of Ms. Kent here on the desk, and you can come up and add your name at any point, and we will call on public speakers from those. Mr. Ailes, I see that you've made your way to the podium, so I will turn the time over to you.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Good evening, councilors. The request before you this evening from the mayor seeks to shift $100,000 from the reserve for unforeseen, which is a line amount passed in the budget by this body last June for the FY23 budget. So the funds have been appropriated, and we're looking to repurpose them into the public property budget to support two initiatives that are needed going forward. The first of which has to do with the Briscoe Middle School disposition. And the purchase and sale that has been agreed to by the city requires that the city shall remove all school-related furniture and other personal property and debris from the premises prior to closing, except personal property identified the buyer in writing within 30 days of the effective date. Up until relatively recently, in the grand scheme of the sale of this property, we didn't know exactly when the closing was scheduled to take place, but it's my understanding at this point that we expect it to close before the end of the calendar year, on or about the end of the calendar year. So that requires us to begin to perform this work. As you know, the school is a big building, and there is still a lot of debris in there. So we expect the cost of this clean out, which we would hire a third party to do, to be significant, I would say. And this is judging from some other projects we've done probably in the $75,000 range, give or take 10 grand, one way or the other. That's my experience is telling me it's going to be right around there. In addition to that, we were successful, thanks to our legislative delegation at the state level, to obtain an earmark for the installation of pickleball courts up at by the airport where those soccer fields are. That is, as you all know, a former dump site that's capped. I don't know what it's a dump site that's been capped. So we want to be really careful anytime we're doing anything up there to make sure that the cap it stays intact and that we're doing it responsibly for the intended use. This requires some engineering work that we need to procure, expertise beyond our employees. And so we're looking to sign, and I believe the engineering department just recently signed an engineering agreement for $65,000 to begin that design work. So right there you can see that the need for just these two projects alone exceeds the amount that we're requesting be put into the public property budget. And that's because that public property budget tends to have some flexibility in it when we build it originally. There is an engineering line in there. There is a repair to facilities line in there that we tend to look to for smaller types of projects throughout the year. The totality of these two together are far beyond what that particular budget could handle, and that's why we're asking the $100,000 to be transferred in. If the timing were different on these two projects and it were later in the season, in the fall season, after we had our free cash certification, we almost certainly would be asking for a free cash transfer at that point to leave the reserve for unforeseen intact. That's not the case because we haven't had our free cash certified yet. So we need to look to this reserve as a temporary measure, which we intend to come back before the council upon free cash certification and replenish the reserve for unforeseen, because as you all know, throughout the year, we have needs that continue to arise that weren't foreseen, and sometimes 18 months in advance when we build the budget. So that's what we're looking to do here. I'm happy to answer any specific questions you might have about either the projects or the mechanism that we're looking to do.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ailes, and I know I saw Councilor Rotundo has a question or a comment, but before, do you mind if I have Mr. Perry?
Yes, and actually my question was answered, so I was going to withdraw.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Councilor Rotundo. Before I open for other councilors, I'd like to ask our budget analyst, Mr. Perry, if you would mind making a comment or offering any thoughts. I know you sent the council a memo with some of your thoughts on this.
Good evening, Madam President, members of council. Yes, on October of this weekend, I sent a memo to you regarding this specific matter. A couple of quick comments. First, as Mr. Ailes indicated, you appropriated $250,000 into this unforeseen account, so there are sufficient funds to handle the request. Mr. Ailes was kind enough to give me about 2 or 3 hours Friday morning, where we spent quite a considerable amount of time looking at some of the spending that's going on early in the fiscal year. He has assured me that he will come back at a later date once free cash is certified. I agree with that strategy. I believe this is an appropriate spending practice within free cash, conforms to our financial policies, and due to timing issues and things of that nature to get the Briscoe done, he needs to come up with the money now. So bottom line to it is I recommend adoption of the proposal. I am monitoring, to refresh your memory, knowing we have the $1 million that they're going to come back on, that you approve. We're going to come back and try to deal with that. We get this, and there are a few other spending practices I am watching in concert with the finance director. Bottom line to it is I'm comfortable that we're going to be able to maintain our budgetary position. I'm not worried about it at this stage. And the fact that they were going to take the money at a later date, replenish it back to the unforeseen, I think is a wise decision because we don't know what's going to happen down the road. So bottom line to it, Madam President, I recommend adoption of the proposal.
Thank you very much, Mr. Perry. Councilors, any questions? Councilor Houseman.
Yes, I have 2 questions. One is, I don't know if we had anything else. I don't believe we have, but what will be the balance in reserve for unforeseen after this this transfer if the council approves it?
Yeah, we appropriated $250,000. We transfer, if we do this, $100,000, so we'll be left with $150,000. Okay. And again, it's the intention of the administration to put that money back December, January range.
And the second question is probably to Mr. Ailes. What is the breakdown or the anticipated breakdown between the 2 different projects, the clean out of Briscoe and the work of the pickleball courts? Roughly.
So we need to bid the rubbish disposal. So that will determine exactly how much that contract is for. But right now, if I were to back of the envelope it, I would say that that's going to be about 75. And then the engineering consulting work is going to be $65,000. Once the engineering work is done, that allows us to go right into construction phase, which hopefully, given the timeline, hopefully won't be too far into the spring, I would think, before we're underway. But Mr. Collins would know better on the timing on that. We do have that $200,000 earmark from the state, which will help facilitate the construction component of the pickleball courts.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilor. Any other questions or comments on this public hearing from the council? Councilor Bowen.
Thank you. So I'm reassured that there is sort of money in the budget in general to handle these tasks. And I know we talked a little bit about this when it was introduced, but just sort of the process of how we got here this early in the year, tapping into the reserve for unforeseen, which my understanding is we have some thoughts about how that is typically used for things like contract obligations at the end of negotiations, things that come up. And just curious about there not being budget space in the public property budget, given that both of these were maybe not foreseeable on the exact timeline, but very foreseeable in terms of, you know, the pickleball courts being a very high public priority that's been discussed at length with the Parks and Rec Department and the mayor's office and with the state legislative delegation. So certainly something we knew was coming. And with the Briscoe building as well, you know, it looks like last year's public property budget, at least sort of when we were looking in budget season, had a, you know, much higher revised budget than original, but not all spent, or not all projected to be spent. So just curious sort of how we got here, and is there anything we can do going forward to not be in the position of moving money around between all these different buckets with a lot of uncertainty, if we could plan in advance for things that are important to get done, and seem to be clear sort of where and how they'll be done.
Yep.
So.
So there's a few questions in there. So let me just kind of explain. It's really about a timing issue, right? Because when we build the budget within the administration, we're really building the budget in March, right? And that's going to cover us for the next 18 months. So although we may have initiatives that have been talked about, which, as we could go through dozens of initiatives, I'm sure, among us all that have been talked about, we don't know exactly the timing per se of each individual initiative. With the pickleball courts, we weren't aware of the earmarks finality until the state budget is set, right? And so we don't know whether or not that's going to make it through veto process and whatnot. So we didn't know that money existed, for the pickleball court until we had already submitted, the mayor had already submitted his budget. So at that point, it becomes an issue of timing. The reserve for unforeseen is really at the onset of the budget, it's the only budgeted area that is truly kind of unforeseen and available for anything that hasn't been already budgeted for within the budget until free cash gets certified. So I always look to it as kind of a safety net to carry us from July 1 through free cash certification. Because once free cash is certified, you can use your free cash balance for any number of things as long as it meets the policies of the city, which these things would. But because it's blacked out right now and we don't have access to that funds until it's certified, this is really just a borrowing, I guess you could say, of the reserve for unforeseen, which we will pay back when free cash gets certified. That's the intent anyway, with your approval. So that's kind of the timing of things. And similarly with the Briscoe Middle School, we've been talking about closing on that project for multiple fiscal years. And the timing has never really been certain. And you'll recall, even as we were going through kind of the budget process this year, there was uncertainty around the funding for that project. You'll remember Harbor Light and Beacon came back looking for additional funds here. They needed additional funds at the state level. So there was a lot of uncertainty around that project. And to set aside, $75,000 or $100,000 in the budget for a kind of could be, when we know we have a reserve that we could look to if we need it, it seems like this is a reasonable kind of solution to that without setting aside the resources unnecessarily. In terms of the budget and the public property budget, if you look line by line, there's really only two flexible lines within that budget, and that's the repairs line, which is set at $135,000, and the engineering line, which is set at $20,000. So $155,000 of flexibility. But I'll tell you, that flexibility doesn't go a very long way when you look at the amount of ongoing type of repairs and ad hoc things that pop up through the year among all of our city assets, right? This is everything public property. So if lights go out here, we look to this to buy new lights. If an elevator breaks, we look to this to fix the elevator. Like, this really is flexible, but it covers a lot of things that happen throughout the year and are kind of unforeseen in nature also. So we don't want to eliminate the flexibility that may exist in this budget right now. Although with what we're expecting for costs, we are eating into a little bit of that to cover the cost of both of these types of projects. Is that helpful?
It is,
Okay.
if I may.
Yes.
Yes, it is very helpful, and I think I guess I would just like to see us use our budgeting process to foresee some of these things. And the Briscoe one in particular, I think the closing date is the end date for that clean out, but presumably we don't have to wait until the last possible minute to clean out that building if we're not going to use any of that material for anything anyway. So just, in supporting the transfer, it feels like it's supporting a style of planning that I'm less comfortable with, because it is a style of planning that involves sort of pushing things off a little bit, waiting until sort of push comes to shove, and then moving around some money in order to do it. And while I understand that 155,000 or so that's in the public property lines will go over the course of the year, if it's a matter of cash flow and we're sort of waiting until November to infuse some free cash into something, I'd rather sort of go with what we have in the budgeted lines that we have, go through the free cash certification process, see what that whole pool of money is, see which priorities across the whole city it can go to, rather than plugging a piece here, plugging a piece there, plugging a piece there every couple of months. So it does answer, I think, the question, and my comment back on that is just I find it difficult to support the movement of money when it's so early in the budget year. We do have money in places for this type of work. And when new things come up, I think certainly we should be responsive, and we shouldn't stand in the way of, the finance department smoothly managing that cash flow. But it just, for these two projects in particular, I don't see the case for it in quite as compelling a way. So, thanks.
Thank you, Counselor. Mr. Perry, are you
This
here?
is a 30-second comment, Madam President. One thing I failed to mention in my presentation, which I did articulate in my memorandum to you all, I was very firm with Finance Director and our City Solicitor. Was this it? Was there any more anticipated funds along the lines with Council Bones talking about with regard to the Briscoe project, which I know is important to the council and the mayor himself from a policy perspective? I have been informed that, to the best of their knowledge, they do not anticipate any more expenditures coming associated with the Briscoe project. So hopefully that'll be it. I can't guarantee you that, neither can they, but I think it's important that the council be aware of that before you take your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Perry. Counselor Rand.
Thank you. Wondering if you could let me know what the final clean out of the middle school looks like. So, as in, like, is there furniture that's going to be sold or donated or just junked?
So we did do a couple of run-throughs with various companies, if you will, to assess the residual value of anything that's left in the building. There's really not much, if anything. It's a lot of broken furniture, piles of rubbish, broken utility, things in the kitchen, and things that really don't have a useful value. We can write into the RFP for disposal that if there is any salvage value, that help to offset some of the costs. But Dave Gelano, our purchasing agent, has been through the building multiple times with Mike Collins, and as well as certain vendors we've used for similar type projects to assess that. And it's been picked over, it's been vacant for a couple of years, so it's been picked over a few times by the schools, by public services, by any department that really has a need for anything. And what's left is really kind of garbage and trash, unfortunately.
Thank you, Counselor Rand. Any final questions from counselors on this one? Are there members of the public who would like to speak in the public hearing on Order 220? All right, seeing none, I will close this public hearing on Order number 220 and refer that back to the Subcommittee on Finance and Property for action to be taken on that. We do have a little time before our next public hearing, so let's go to acceptance of minutes of previous meetings. We have two sets of minutes to be approved this evening. One is from our regular City Council meeting, September 19th, 2022, and the other is the one alluded to earlier by Ms. Visnick in her comments, the Legal Affairs Committee of the Whole meeting from September 27th, 2022. Is there a motion to approve these two sets of minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. That motion carries 9-0, and those sets of minutes are approved. Ms. Kent, let's go to communications from His Honor the Mayor, please.
Order number 244, Dear Honorable City Council, I am pleased to inform you that the City of Beverly has been awarded a $62,575 Municipal Road Safety Program grant from the Executive Office of Public Safety and Security Office of Grants and Research. This funding is made possible by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and will be used for traffic enforcement campaigns with the goal of reducing vehicle crashes and the resulting injuries and loss of life. Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53A requires both City Council and Mayor approval for any grant, earmark, donation, or gift to the city can be expended for the prescribed purpose. I therefore request the City Council approve this grant at your upcoming meeting. Sincerely yours, Michael P. Cahill, Mayor.
Thank you. Please refer that to the Committee on Finance and Property.
Order number 245, Dear Honorable City Council, I am pleased to inform you that the City of Beverly has been given a $300 donation from the Ward 2 Civic Association to support the Gillis Park Staircase Project with the Parks and Recreation Department is managing. Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53A requires both City Council and Mayor approval before any grant, earmark, donation, or gift to the city can be expended for their prescribed purpose. I therefore request the City Council approve this grant by acting on this matter at your upcoming meeting. Sincerely yours, Michael P. Cahill, Mayor.
Thank you. Please refer that to the Committee on Finance and Property as well.
Order number 246. Dear Honorable City Council, by Order 141 of 2021, the City Council gave authorization to enter into a reciprocal easement agreement with Briscoe Village LLC in connection with the city's proposed sale of the former Briscoe Middle School at 7 Sawyer Road to Briscoe Village. At that time, the parties' purchase and sale agreement contemplated that Briscoe Village would be responsible for constructing certain site improvements located on city property, including a new access drive providing access from Sawyer Road to the recreational field behind the Briscoe building, landscaping and other improvements in the existing public park area located on city property referred to as the turf bowl, and landscaping and other improvements to portions of the perimeter of Briscoe Village property that encroached into the public layouts of Colin Street and Sawyer Road collectively. The retained property improvements. Order 141 of 2021 authorized the grant of the easements necessary to complete the retained property improvements. As noted in Briscoe Village's minor modification request of special permit number 110-2020, the parties have now agreed that the city will assume responsibility for the retained property improvements in exchange for Briscoe Village making an additional payment in the amount of $385,000 at the closing. In light of this, it is necessary to revise the reciprocal easement agreement to include a grant of easements by Briscoe Village to the city to allow the city to perform the retained property improvements and to eliminate the easements that would have been granted at Briscoe Village to do the work. A proposed order and copy of the revised reciprocal easement agreement are attached hereto. The relevant revisions are redlined so that you can easily see them. Please do not hesitate to contact me or the Solicitor's Office. Sincerely yours, Michael P. Cahill, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kent. Please refer that to the Committee on Legal Affairs.
Order 247, Dear Honorable City Council, attaches the calendar for...
Wait, I think I forgot to say.
Yeah, you did.
Yep, communications from other city officers and boards. Just so that we're all on the same page.
Order 247, Dear Honorable City Council, attached from the city clerk is the calendar for the 2022 early voting state election schedule for your review and approval.
Thank you very much, and I would entertain a motion to receive this and place it on file.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries 9-0.
Order number 248, Dear Honorable City Council, attaches the election warrant for the state election for your review and approval since, oh, that's from me. Going all out of order here.
No, you did it right, 248?
248, yeah.
Yes. So I would entertain a motion to approve Order 248 for the clerk's office.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Motion carries 9-0.
Order 249 related to the city clerk for a request for the city council to approve to raise the price of the application for a fortune teller license from $2 to $50.
Thank you. Please refer that to the Committee on Legal Affairs.
Order number 250. This is from the share of the CPC, and it's for the CPC 10th funding round kickoff.
Thank you. I'd entertain a motion to receive this one and place it on file.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Thank you. Motion carries 9-0, and I'll pause us here to open our next public hearing. I will open our posted public hearing for 7:45 on Order 208. Ms. Kent.
Ordered that the City Council of the City of Beverly hold a public hearing on Monday, October 3rd, 2022, 8 p.m. at 191 Cabot Street, 3rd floor, Council Chambers. Ordered that the City of Beverly appropriate the sum of $470,775 to be placed into a project fund to the purpose of paying engineering costs and police details costs associated with the National Grid 115 kV electric transmission cable installment projects. Costs incurred shall be reimbursed by National Grid to the city's general fund per the memo of agreement. Sorry, I'm done.
Oh, and it's advertised in
It was advertised in the newspaper on September 27th.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, Ms. Kent. So I just want to mention again, if there are members of the public interested in speaking in this public hearing or the upcoming one at 8:15, those sign-up sheets are in front of Ms. Kent on her desk, and you can sign up at any point.
September 23rd. Sorry.
Thank you. I was joking. I know I interrupted you while you were busy coughing. I see that our Assistant Solicitor, Jesse Dole, has also joined us since I last did a round of introductions. Thank you, Mr. Dole. And Solicitor Williams, but I think she's stepped out again. I'll introduce her again later. Mr. Ailes, you're back at the podium.
Thank you. Good to see you all again.
Long time no see.
Yeah. You have before you a request. It's primarily a procedural request. You're all familiar with the memorandum of agreement that you all approved, reviewed, as well as an amendment to the memorandum of agreement, which addressed some of the modifications to some of the funds that would be coming from National Grid to the city in support of certain functions. This is the procedural mechanism to access those funds. There's there's actually three components to the compensation. The first is for $315,000. I'm reading directly from the MOA, the Memorandum of Agreement. $315,000 for reasonable expenses incurred in hiring an engineering consultant to oversee construction of the project to ensure that it does not adversely affect city infrastructure and planned construction projects along the construction route. In addition to that, a second component called for to reimburse the city for directed police patrols up to $155,775 if the city determines that such patrols are necessary to manage traffic on designated detours and other side roads. So those two components of the memorandum of agreement spell out the money that they will, in fact, reimburse the city, but we need the mechanics to actually access the money. So we need an appropriation where it's not a grant or a donation, it's a reimbursement. So we're seeking to appropriate the funds initially for the total amount, and then as we receive reimbursement, that'll be the offset of the revenue. So it's effectively a wash on the budget, but it allows us to access the funds by actually making the appropriation. The third component of the memorandum of agreement has to do with paving after the project's done, and that is $3.25 million to permanently patch and allow us to hire our own contractor to perform the final pavement restoration. That will also require a procedural step later on after the project's done. When we receive that payment, we'll come before this body or the next body and request access to those funds as well. Happy to answer any specific questions you have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ailes. Mr. Perry, I don't know if there's anything you'd like to add to this one?
Thank you, Madam President. Yes, the Finance Director is correct. Under Chapter 44, Section 31, even though we receive these funds, you can't spend them without an appropriation. So how the mechanics of this, we're fortunate it was being done before the tax rate is being set in December. What will occur is if you approve this tonight, they will receive the receipts. You're allowing them to spend it on police and engineering studies. Mechanically, it's placed on the tax rate on page 3 of the recap. And in order to get that on the recap, we need this vote tonight. I wrote to you September 7th on this, and Madam President, members of the council, I recommend adoption of the proposal. It is a mechanical thing.
Thank you very much, Mr. Perry. Members of the council, any questions on this one? Councillor Sweeney.
Thank you, Madam President. Just one question. In reading through the materials, I see that the reimbursements that we will receive from National Grid will be returned to the general fund. Where will this initial authorization come from?
So because we haven't set the tax rate, as Mr. Perry was alluding to, we can raise and appropriate whatever value we feel. And then when we go to set the tax rate, you back into the tax rate based on what's been raised and appropriated. So we're requesting an expenditure level increase, but what we'll also do is increase our expected revenues by the reimbursement value. So it'll have a net zero effect on the tax rate.
Okay.
And that gets reflected on page 3 of the recap, as Mr. Perry mentioned.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Sweeney. Councillors, any other questions or comments on this one? Are there any members of the public who would like to speak in this public hearing on Order 208? Seeing none, I'll close that public hearing on Order 208 and refer that back to the Committee on Finance and Property for us to take action this evening. Ms. Kent, let's pick back up with communications from other city officers and boards at Order 251, please.
Order number 251 from the Beverly Community Preservation Committee, the Community Preservation Committee fiscal year 2023 proposed CPA budget.
Please refer that to the Committee on Legal Affairs.
Order number 252 from Council Rotundo, a biannual Beverly Harbor Management Authority report.
Thank you, Councilor Rotundo. Anything that you'd like to say about this one?
Just to give a thank you to Chairperson Paul Earl, who actually authored the report. I want to give him thanks for that.
Thank you very much, Councilor Rotundo. I would entertain a motion to receive this and place it on file.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries 9-0.
Order number 253 from the city clerk, an application for a license to sell Christmas trees from John Defencio at 294 Elliott Street.
Thank you. Please refer that to the Committee on Legal Affairs. Oh, sorry. I would entertain a motion to accept a late file from Councilor Houseman.
So moved.
Madam President, I'd like to
Councilor Crowley.
put a hold on this, please.
Councilor Crowley.
President, if I may?
I think if I'm not wrong, if Councilor Crowley is using his hold, there's no discussion? Is that?
Well, there can be a motion for reconsideration that's filed within 24 hours. So I would like to explain why this is a late file and the circumstances around that on the public record.
I just need a motion for a 5-minute recess so I can refresh my memory on this process piece.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. I'm gonna take a 5-minute recess so I can make sure I'm doing it correctly. call the city council back to order. Thank you everyone for that leeway with the recess. I just wanted to have a chance to take a look at the charter, which is where the councilor's prerogative to hold an order is addressed, just to make sure that we did this correctly. So thank you everyone. So in looking at that, it does confirm that a single member may put a hold on an order. It will go to the next regular meeting, which would be our next meeting in 2 weeks. So Councilor Crowley, you had said that you would like to hold Order 259, so I'll return to you and see if that's still your intention.
It is my intention, thank you.
Okay. So that will go to our agenda for the 10/17 meeting. I would entertain a motion to accept a late file from Councilor Houseman on Order 259A.
I'd like to hold 259A also, please.
So similarly, this will go to the 10/17 meeting, Councilor Crowley.
Thank you.
Ms. Kent, let's go to communications, applications, and petitions, please.
Order number 255 from Glofsky, requesting a minor modification request for Bristol Village Center for Living and Arts Special Permit 110-2020.
Thank you. Please refer that to the Committee on Legal Affairs.
Order number 256 from the Department of Public Utilities, notice of filing and request for comments, petition of Mass Electric Company and Nantucket Electric Company, each DBA National Grid, for approval of an alternate basic service procurement plan.
Thank you. I would entertain a motion to receive this and place it on file.
So moved.
Second.
All those, sorry, I should have said any discussion. Any discussion?
I just wanted to make a brief comment that in looking at this, I guess, announcement and request for comment, I saw that the city had commented already and didn't know if there was anyone who wanted to speak to that, or I could also briefly summarize, but just thought it was worth flagging for the council and the public that there was already a city comment submitted on that alternative basic service procurement plan.
Is there anyone here from the city who would like to comment on that? Councilor Bowen, would you like to provide a summary?
Sure, I would be happy to the best of my understanding. Essentially, National Grid is filing with the Department of Public Utilities around how they're going to be providing services for the next quarter. And they've announced, related to that, and in this particular request, which I think is just specific to industrial customers, significant rate hikes that they're expecting on electricity service. And there's been a lot of discussion in the news about how that's going to affect all of us individually and, municipalities, businesses. And so the city's response, along with responses already from the Attorney General's office and some others, was just commenting on that increase in cost and also requesting that the Department of Public Utilities look at Beverly's submission for municipal aggregation, a plan that was submitted, I think, 18 months ago and has been sitting with the Department of Public Utilities. And so the comment on this particular filing was saying, in light of this, we're requesting expedited review, or not expedited at this point, but prompt review. So, wanted to elevate that.
Thank you, Councilor Bowen. I appreciate that summary, and it's very helpful to have for all of us to hear.
There may be a better one.
Sorry,
Well,
I was trying to have
I was
supper
just
in the
looking
other
down,
room.
and then
Sorry.
I looked up, and the mayor was just there.
I just, if I could, thank you, Councilor Bowen, for bringing that up. We actually just submitted that letter, raising concerns with the level of increase that Grid has requested in their filing with the DPU, and really urging the DPU to act on. Look, we together, right? We put forward an application to the state to do a community choice aggregation of electricity. We filed that application in February of 2021, so they've been sitting on it for over a year and a half, and they had made a statement in the summer that they would be taking on those applications and acting on them this fall, and they haven't done it yet. So we just put the letter in to say, please do it now, because we need then a little bit of time. There's a process to get to going to a bid, and the hope is that
in going through that community choice aggregation process, we'll be able to realize some savings on the rates for Beverly residents, residential, and I think it's business too, but yes, for anybody who doesn't already have an individual plan. And that we would do better by that bid than with what they're trying to get passed through the DPS. So thanks for raising that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and thanks for appearing at that moment.
I'm here.
So thank you very much, Councillor Bowen. We had a motion and a second to receive this and place on file. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries 9-0 on Order 256.
Order 257, Department of Utilities, notice of filing and public hearing for a petition of Boston Gas Company and DBA National Grid Gas for approval of its 2019-2021 three-year energy efficiency plan term report. I can't speak tonight.
You're doing great, Ms. Ken. This one, I'd also entertain a motion to receive and place on file.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries 9-0.
Order number 254, Department of Public Utilities, notice of filing and public hearing, a petition of Massachusetts Electric Company and Nantucket Electric Company, each DBA National Grid, for approval of their 2019-2021 three-year energy plan term report.
Thank you. I'd entertain a motion to receive this and place it on file.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries 9-0. Because I think our committee work will take us a little longer than we have left before our last public hearing, I would entertain a motion to go out of order so we could go to motions and orders and quickly take care of this.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. So motions and orders, this is Order 238. It requires a first reading this evening. Ms. Kent.
Order number 238, the legal notice of 2022-238, be it obtained by the City Council of the City of Beverly as follows. In the year 2022, an ordinance amending an ordinance relative to Chapter 270, Vehicles and Traffic, Section 270-49, amendment to include handicap parking space. Amended Section 270-49 as follows. Add a handicap parking sign at 24 Myrtle Street and add a handicap parking sign at 31 Grant Street. Ordinance to take effect upon publication and final passage, and this was in the newspaper on October 7th.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kent. I would also entertain a motion to go out of order and take unfinished business from a previous meeting.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. So we have Order 237. Councillor St. Hilaire, this was your order, which had been in legal affairs and is now back before the council. I recognize we may need more time with it, but I'd like to go to you, Councillor St. Hilaire, and see.
Yeah, thank you, Madam President. I, just want to follow up on the legal affairs conversation that we had a week or so ago that was referenced earlier. In further requests that we move forward as a council with some sort of public forum. It can be more broad than my ordinance amendment, but, I do think, if we could schedule that tonight, that would be a great next step for me.
Thank you, Councillor St. Hilaire. So this special meeting or public conversation, it seems like we could go ahead and schedule that, which would give us a chance as a council to have a broader conversation and potentially hear from the public, as Councillor St. Hilaire is asking. Monday, the 24th is a Monday evening, so it seems like that could work for councillors. Councillor St. Hilaire, would that work?
That works for me.
So, what's the time? 7:00 p.m.? Is that also, we'll keep it at our consistent time? I don't think we need a motion to set it, right? We just set it?
I think so.
Well, I'll take a motion. We don't need a motion. Great, we set that meeting. So Councillor St. Hilaire, we will continue to keep Order 237 under unfinished business from a previous meeting, and it will be the sole agenda item at that special meeting.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, with that, I've really run out of other items for us to work through, so I would entertain a motion for a 5-minute recess before we take up our public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We'll take a 5-minute recess and be back for our 8:15 hearing. Thank you. Welcome back. We're back. So call back to order the city council as we pick up with our posted 8:15 public hearing. This is on order 243.
City of Beverly ordered that the City Council of the City of Beverly hold a public hearing on Monday, October 3rd, 2022 at 8:15 PM at 191 Cabot Street, 3rd floor, Council Chambers live stream on BevCam relative to the petition from National Grid for a grant of location to install plastic gas main on Cabot Street between Bridge Street and Federal Street for approximately 500 feet to Chapman Street. And this was in the newspaper on September 23rd.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kent. Just a reminder, members of the public, there is the sign-up sheet for this public hearing in front of Ms. Kent on her desk, and so anyone who would like to speak can sign up there. Ms. Kent is just checking because I believe our National Grid rep, Diane Cuddy, is here. So she's just going to see if we can have her come on in. Thank you very much, Ms. Cuddy. This is tonight our National Grid rep, Diane Cuddy, is here, and so I'll just ask if there's anything you'd like to share, updates, or information on this order.
Good evening. My name is Diana Cuddy from National Grid Gas, 40 Sylvan Road, Waltham, Massachusetts, and I'm here tonight requesting a grant of location for a new gas main in Cabot Street from Bridge Street to Federal Street and then turning and going down Federal Street about 500 feet. And I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. Councilor Rotundo.
Thank you, Madam President. I just had a quick question in regards to the gas main work and the pavement that's been torn up. Is there going to be any consideration for reparation along the pavement of that to make it smoother than what it's currently there?
So my understanding is that some of the work is done ahead of city paving on some parts of Cabot Street, and then following the completion of the rest of the work, the supervisor will walk the job with they do it, not a permanent patch, but a temporary patch, and then he'll walk the job with the city engineer, and they'll discuss final restoration of the pavement, yeah.
Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you very much, Councilor Rotundo. Councilor Rand.
Thank you. Can you share with me, please, how much of this project is completed?
I believe what I've heard is the latest, we've paved ahead of state paving of Bridge Street, so just over the bridge from Salem, we've paved up to School Street, and then paved, we've installed gas pipe up to School Street, and now we've done another northern portion of it, and what I'm here for tonight is to get the connecting piece approved.
Councilor Rand.
Thank you. So the other, we're not approving the whole project.
You are, because we started the project without a grant of location. In the past, every municipality does it differently. Some municipalities, we need a grant of location for town-owned property, but not the right-of-way of the street. Others, the permit and the grant are together. It varies very differently. And our records indicated that for a grant of location in Beverly, that we needed to provide the abutters notices, and so that's what we have been doing, but it's recently come to our attention that we should be in front of you requesting any new main gas work should have a grant of location independent of anything else. So that's what I'm here for today, to get the grant for this portion that we haven't installed yet, as well as the pieces that we have.
Thank you, and I do have one more, if I may.
Please.
Thank you. Can you maybe describe the need for this new main?
Absolutely. So the purpose of this main, it's a reliability main, it's not integrity main. So this is to connect and sort of loop two existing systems to provide better reliability to serve the east side of the town.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilor Rand. Are there other questions? Councilor Houseman.
Yeah, I'd like to hear from our solicitor's office on the question of how this is before us, hasn't been before us in the past. Before I do that, just to sort of set the table, National Grid does a lot of gas work in the city.
Correct.
Including repairing leaks and so forth. Is it your understanding that from now on, whenever National Grid opens any portion of a public way in Beverly, that National Grid will be coming before the council for the purpose of seeking a permit for opening and replacing pipes?
Well, I'll have to check moving forward, but regarding the state statutes is we would have a grant of location for any new asset, and then a leak on that new asset is covered under the original grant of location. This is a little different too, because we already have a gas main in the street, a low-pressure gas main, but we're adding another new one, so that's why this also needs a grant of location. I don't think we'll be coming back for anything regarding leaks and things like that, because usually it relates to the main, but the asset of the main, but I can check on that.
Thank you. If I may, Council President, through you to the Solicitor's Office, sort of ask follow-up question, basically the same one. In the past, I don't believe we've had National Grid come before us for permission like they do with electric line work to seek any kind of approval or permission or permit from the council on gas work. And so if you could sort of give us a broader context about past practice going forward, and the distinguishing between perhaps new versus existing lines that are down?
I have no idea about the history. The engineering department oversees any sort of, well, specifically trench work. So any time that a trench, and there is a definition of what a trench is based on the dimensions, requires obtaining a trench permit through the engineering department, which is our ordinance is based on the state law, Jackie's Law, which was created to ensure safety when you open up public roadways and trenches. As far as what's been done in the past as the installation of new gas lines, I have no idea. I have no idea how old the existing gas infrastructure is and when those lines were laid. That would probably take some, that might be a better question for the engineering department. The solicitor's office doesn't issue that sort of permitting, those sort of permits. I'm sorry if I didn't follow what your follow-up question was about. Are you speaking about what the requirements are for this sort of new gas line installation?
Please.
Based upon your answer you just gave me, I think my follow-up question is rather moot, but I am curious that the decision around whether or not a matter for permitting to open our streets is defaulted to the engineering department. It doesn't, surely it has a legal basis. Why the council reviews National Grid electric line permits, I would guess it's not a matter solely left up to the engineering department, but rests perhaps by statute. And so I would think there would be something equivalent that would relate to gas line work in the city.
Yeah, and Councilor Houseman, I know you emailed us about this late last spring, and Assistant Solicitor Dole emailed you back about this. The Solicitor's Office would not historically have been notified if National Grid filed an application for a permit from the Engineering Department. Apparently, the standing practice had been that the permit was issued directly by engineering. I'm not sure ultimately how it came to our attention over the last couple of months, but we did look into it, and it is our opinion that the installation of new gas lines does require a grant of location under state law. I know you had asked about this last spring as to whether or not our ordinances had that requirement, and we told you no, but that under state law there is a requirement. And I think that Councilor Bowen, perhaps in this particular case flagged this, and that's how this particular petition came forward. And it's my understanding that prospectively that is the plan, and National Grid understands that it is the expectation of the city that for new assets they file a petition for grant of location. So.
Thank you, Solicitor.
Yeah, so the answer is that it doesn't default to the departments, so the departments specialize in the rules and regulations of their departments. And we don't get an application every time something gets filed with the department. They're the specialists in the department, and they make decisions based on the rules and regulations that apply to their department. If they ask us a question, we give them an opinion. So it's been raised with us. It was raised by you last spring. It was raised by Councilor Bowen recently, and now we have a better understanding of what the process needs to be going forward.
So if I may, the position of the solicitor's office is that going forward, the engineering department needs to require National Grid on new gas line installations in the city to appear before the city council?
I think the new requirement is that National Grid knows that it needs to appear before the city council. There may be other permits that National Grid needs to get from engineering as well, but engineering is aware of that.
So the decision as to what, if I may, Council President, the decision, just, I'm still seeking a little bit of clarity, the decision about whether or not a new gas line would come before the council depends upon the engineering department.
Well, it's actually dictated by state law, not the engineering department.
Right. Well, that's, I guess, where I was, apparently I'm not as clear as I thought I was, that state law would determine whether the engineering department or any other department of the city would require National Grid to come before the city council for such an operation.
Correct.
So that there's a determination, I gather, by the solicitor's office then, that is the new sort of standing protocol?
Yes. And I want to call you Counselor Dole, but.
And I think you did highlight, Counselor, this is, gas main work occupies a different portion of Chapter 164 than electrical transmission lines, specifically when it comes to new gas infrastructure. The statute itself does not require a grant of location. So that is effectively kind of a term of art that's kind of been adopted by National Grid and some municipalities for when a gas company wants to open a street. And those are the language that's directly from the specific section of Chapter 164, is the gas company, when it wishes to open a street, needs written consent of, in this case, the city council. And the only obligation under that section is that it put all streets in as good repair as they were when they were opened. So while a grant of location isn't a legal term when it comes to new gas mains laid by a gas company when they open a street, for lack of, everyone seems to just call it a grant of location rather than a written consent to open a street. So while, yes, it is a major piece of infrastructure, energy distribution infrastructure, it's different when it comes to gas mains that are laid in the street compared to electrical transmission lines, which everyone is well aware we just went through with the 115 kV project. So yes, by state law, written consent is required from the city council in these circumstances. That is, I think that's the question you were asking. So it is not a grant of location such as electrical transmission infrastructure. It is a written consent to open a street for gas main infrastructure.
And to the best of your knowledge, does the solicitor's office or the engineering department make a determination? Has it made a determination as to what the phrase open a street means? Because the representative from National Grid seems to suggest that opening a street phrase would not apply to repair work, and yet just, a year ago in front of my house, I was told by National Grid gas company that they would be doing about a 3-week repair, quote unquote, on the streets around where I live, and that took closer to 5 months. And by all intents and purposes, I would consider that an opening of a street. I'm just wondering if we can get some further clarity around who gets to make the determination of whether National Grid should get permission from the council or not.
The legislature has, through the creation, the drafting of Chapter 164, and the grant of authority and responsibility to the Department of Public Utilities for the overall permitting and regulation and the enforcement of the CMRs when it comes to power companies. In this situation, the gas companies. So there was a effectively local municipalities are effectively preempted from really regulating these sort of activities at all, because the legislature clearly established DPU as the entity that will do the lion's share of the permitting, which is why Section 70 is written as written consent to open the street. There's a significant amount of regulating that goes on by the DPU when it comes to these corporations. So it has been determined that if they are opening the street for new gas infrastructure work, that written consent is necessary from the Board of the City Council prior to doing that. Now, subsequent to that, when there's repair work being done, maintenance work being done, that's all reviewed, permitted, regulated, enforced at the level of DPU. And I can explain the topic of preemption to anyone who doesn't know or isn't familiar with that legal term, but the legislature has decided that to ensure uniform regulation of large-scale infrastructure that covers, in some cases, many towns, cities at a time, so that the utility companies know that the rules aren't going to change from town to town, city to city, the DPU is going to regulate these things. So it is not my interpretation that it's written consent, that's language in the statute. The SJC has issued opinions as to what local municipalities can and cannot do when gas companies come in the context of seeking written consent to open a street. So now, whatever may or may not have happened in the past where National Grid or any other gas companies has opened up streets for new gas main installation, I don't know. I don't know what I don't know. It's an unknown unknown, to quote the late Rumsfeld. But so I hope that clarifies. But if you have some issues with maintenance work that was done by National Grid, I mean, the DPU has been given statutory authority to enforce those regulations and the CMRs when it comes to gas companies. So.
Thank you, Assistant Solicitor.
I have no further questions.
Thank you, Councillor Houseman.
Just at the risk of coming to the podium after Councillor Houseman said I have no more questions, we've worked together for a long time. I mean, I can say that, I hope. We did consult with Attorney Miares about this. You all remember him. And his view, just in a sort of a nutshell, is that this is really for the installation of new lines and new assets. So.
Thank you. Thanks, Solicitor. Thank you, Councillor Houseman. Any other questions from councillors? Councillor Bowen.
Thank you. And more a brief comment than a question. But just I'm heartened to hear that it is an opportunity with gas work, like it was with the electric work, that when there is a new project, there is at least a public hearing like this, where we have the opportunity to ask, where's it going to go? What's the benefit to our community and or other communities that is the reason for this work, and just helps people understand why they're sitting in traffic for 6 months on one of our busiest streets, and have that conversation happen in public. So I'm happy that will presumably happen going forward for any other new assets, and it makes sense to me that once something is there, if it needs repair, we've sort of already as a body heard why it's there and that it needs to be maintained, and the public has as well. So I guess maybe just a quick question on this one, building on Councillor Rand's question and Councillor Rotundo's question. This work started, is getting close to done, hopefully, but is there a planned timeline for completion of any remaining pieces and restoring the road?
Yeah, I believe I just wanted to mention one thing. So the grant allocation, we do it, we're happy to come forward. We do it a lot of other communities. Once we get the grant allocation, then we do apply for a permit. So there's both things going on. In the permit are usually, pavement restoration conditions or things like that. So that will still happen. That doesn't change anything. So we stopped work to sort this piece of it out. We didn't want to continue if, if this was an issue. So they're ready to go, I think, right away to complete I know they want to finish it in the next couple of weeks, so, yep.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak on the public hearing on Order 243? Seeing none, I'll close that public hearing and refer that back to the Subcommittee on Public Services to take action this evening. And Ms. Cuddy, that will be momentarily, so you can meet with that committee. I just didn't want you to think that we were done, just in case there was a question. If you don't mind. I can't force you to, but if you would be so kind. With that, that does bring us to committee work time, so I'd entertain a motion to take a break for some committee work.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. That carries 9-0. Let's have Finance and Property will stay here on BevCam this evening. Legal Affairs in the committee room, please, and Public Services has the lightest agenda, so on the bench. And Ms. Cuddy, therefore, you can join them in the hall on the bench. Thank you. Thank you.
Call to order, Subcommittee on Finance and Property. Good evening. I'd like to acknowledge our budget analyst, Jerry Perry is here, our Finance Director, Brian Ailes, and our Sustainability Director, Arena Keefe, who is here, as well as City Solicitor Office as well. First item I'm going to take actually a little bit out of order. I'm going to take up order number 223. This is a order for a 3-year private donation of $300,000 in annual increments of $100,000 to fund a new position of sustainability project managers to support Beverly's main sustainability program. And for that, I would ask if Ms. Keefe would like to say a few words to the subcommittee about this, or with Mr. Ailes.
I do know the mayor is going to join us briefly as well, and he would like to speak to it as well. But Arena, you want to?
Sure thing. Good evening. And
Evening.
so I think really first and foremost, we're just really grateful that this donor has made this generous offer for a 3-year, essentially contributing to a position and to our green transportation work. I'm glad that this person is able to acknowledge, this organization can acknowledge the kind of value and the importance and the urgency of having more capacity focused on this work here, and has really enabled us to get so much done in the last 2 years. Yeah, so I'm happy to answer any questions. You have some materials from us. There's been I think we've sent you a barrage of information, including my old job description, a proposed draft job description for the new sustainability project manager, who we're hoping to hire as a result of these grant funds, and a 2-year progress report. That's sort of everything that I've been working on. We're calling it the Sustainability Office, and it's really just been me working in coordination with a lot of our departments in the city. And Mayor, if you want to add anything.
Yeah, I was going to say, Before we get to committee members' questions, subcommittee members, Mayor, if you would like to say a few words about this?
Okay.
Good evening, Mayor.
Hello, how are you all? Look, this is exciting. You know, we've got a somebody who is committed enough to this work to reach out and say, you know, let's go ahead and double our capabilities. I think, as you folks know, the amount of work that Ms. Keefe does is pretty, it's impressive at every level. The first thing she did when we collectively created the position that she holds is we asked her to project manage the multi-site solar project, the one that's currently under construction and actually almost done. That was all told about a 5-year process, and she came in on it a couple of years ago. We had several department heads who were all giving time to that, of necessity, and still have given time, but there was nobody who was really running point on that. You know, you had engineering, you had public services, solicitor's office, purchasing, finance director, my office, and she took that and she just kind of pulled it all together. I'd like to think we'd still be building those arrays now, either way, but the reality is that we went through a lengthy process with National Grid around the interconnection issues around each of the sites, 6 different sites, 6 different public properties around the city. If we were to have tried to travel that path without Ms. Keefe, it would have really taken a lot of time away from all those department heads and other staff in those departments from all the other pieces of their day-to-day work. Now, you know, sustainability and addressing you know, both major parts of the climate crisis, both driving down our greenhouse gas emissions and dealing with the already visible effects that are to come, you know, such as the storm surge flooding that comes during you know, more severe storms, and dealing with heat islands, and trying to make sure that people who don't have you know, as many personal resources that others have a level of resilience during heat waves and cold snaps and things, all that. This work takes all day, every day for a number of people. And the fact is she's been doing amazing work on her own. So, I mean, I could go all night. I won't. I apologize for having said as much as I have, except that this $300,000 donation will require, in order to fund the position for 3 years, with the proposal that the donor fund 80%, 60%, 40% of the costs, and the city take on the balance. And I know I've shared this with you. Based on a position advertised between $60,000 and $75,000 a year, and either an individual or a family health plan, depending on what the person selects, who we would hire. The donor's committing about $140,000 to $165,000 in total to this. Whatever doesn't get spent here by the donor will go to our fleet electrification work, another $135,000 to $160,000 to total $300,000. And the city's commitment over 3 years to leverage that would be about $95,000 to $110,000 in total over 3 years. We would be, you know, obligated to take on the complete costs in year 4, and I would think that given where we are in 2022 and the gravity of addressing, of really attacking this climate crisis locally to regionally and beyond, doing our part, I believe that with this jumpstart, we can, you know, well afford and really need to see ourselves able to afford this level of support for our work. So thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. Yes, Mr. Perry, would you like to comment on this? Provide some context for us before we go to questions from the subcommittee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple of comments of it quickly. On the 19th of September, I wrote to you about...
Excuse me, Mr. Perry, I just want to call to order Committee of the Whole. Thank you.
Sure. I wrote to you on September 19th, a memorandum regarding this matter. A couple things, literally I got a phone call about this from the finance director as I was watching Old Faithful spout out Yellowstone, so that's how I handled this. But a couple of things. I, as your budget analyst, was not aware of what was going on with the activity of the office. So they did a couple things. One, they were very kind enough to supply the council as well as myself a ton of information, background information, activity, which was very helpful to me anyways. Secondly, last Friday I was able to obtain through the chief of staff of the mayor's annual report, which provided further information to assist me in trying to make determination whether I thought there was a good activity or not. So I was finally, I was aware of what was going on, but I wasn't 2 or 3 weeks ago. Bottom line to it is, to me, from a public policy perspective, I think this is pretty important stuff. I believe in this. I've been advocating for this. The fact that we have a donor willing to give $300,000, I think, is really a wonderful thing. I agree with the mayor's assessment. I did run some of the numbers myself. It's going to cost the city approximately $100,000 over the next 3 years to sustain this. Beyond that, if that's the desire of both the administration and the city council. I did suggest in my memorandum, I think it would be helpful, and I would ask of the mayor and Arena if they provide a semi-annual and annual report of some capacity. The annual report certainly could be incorporated into the mayor's report, maybe a semi-annual report to the council so that the councilors know what's going on, in terms of transparency. And bottom line to this, it's my recommendation to you as a subcommittee and to the committee as a whole to adopt this. I would approve it. Let's see how they do over the next 3 years. With the reports coming in and the money coming in, you will have a better information if at the end of the day, after 3 years, whether you want to continue this position. I would recommend adoption of the proposal, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Members of the subcommittee, questions? Council President.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. So I am definitely in favor of this work getting done. I'm very appreciative of Ms. Keefe's work in the city. Some of it was highlighted tonight, but it's really too much to highlight. Just a question that I have, and it I think is either for you, Mr. Mayor, or perhaps for Ms. Keefe as well. It strikes me that to really continue as a city to lean into this kind of work, it's not dissimilar from our commitment to DEI work, really needs to be sort of then woven in with every other department. And so there's been a few times recently where I think we've had presentations about, in one case it was about stormwater maintenance and what we might be doing with that. And one of the counselors asked, have you consulted with the sustainability director? How has this been tied in? And the answer was no, because this is an engineering project. I'm appreciative that Ms. Keefe is one person. So I guess my question is, would having this position help us to be able to better integrate, create a culture where departments really are weaving in the work of sustainability into their separate roles? Ms. Keefe, I guess that would be for you.
Sure, hope so. Yeah, that would be the idea. And I think one of the biggest areas where we're still kind of in need of additional capacity is exactly one of those kind of cross-departmental areas, which is resilience, really. So in the past, we've had, just in my tenure here, we've been working on 2 resilience projects. One was the Aubert Park project, looking at erosion controls and education, and the other was the pump station on Water Street. And for both of those, one was led by engineering, one was led by planning, and those were intended to be really, team efforts that brought the planning departments, engineering departments, sustainability, and others to the table. And for both of those projects, it was really just step 1, feasibility study. And then everything that we're doing from then on in terms of design and implementation is going to require all, additional technical and other forms of technical, I suppose, but engineering and planning collaboration working together. And to date, we haven't really had a single person to own those types of projects and to really manage, start to finish, bringing all the departments together and convening them for resilience. Those are 2 in particular. We also have the Bass River Resilience Study coming up. That's another one that's, we're not able to start with our existing capacity in planning or sustainability until we have more staff to take this on. And those are really just the projects that we've launched. And when we look, to the coastline, just up and down the coastline of Beverly, we have a lot of spots of vulnerability that could use some attention in terms of having a manager to secure funding for those initial phases of understanding what the risk is. The carriage house at Lynch Park is one example of a project like that. So yeah, I think there's plenty of room for collaboration, and with limited capacity in sort of every department, we're moving along with the projects that we can, and know that we can always do better in terms of, you know, bringing each other in. Yeah.
Thank you. That's really helpful, Ms. Keefe, and sort of matched my suspicions that with a one-person department, it's hard to then have the capacity to create this cross-departmental culture that I think really leaning into this work will require for our city.
If I could, that was all spot on. If I could just add as well, one of the thoughts with the Bass River, thank you, the Bass River Resilience Study that we just got grant funding for is that, you know, we had to bring on kind of a one-off effort, somebody to help write that grant application. We talked about that in subcommittee last time. Neither engineering nor planning was excited about taking on the project management of that because of capacity. This position would help project manage that effort. Another point, you know, everybody can get work, and people can get siloed on their own. It takes effort to go across departments. We make that effort. Eric Barber, our city engineer, was part of the steering committee of the climate action planning process, and he brought really a lens of being the steward of the infrastructure that engineering oversees. You know, trying to make sure that we manage our assets to extend their lives, that we design properly things like stormwater management systems, like our water and sewer infrastructure, so that they operate as they need to, and they last. So, you know, it's one piece, but it's an example of that opportunity. And you might think with engineering it's more resilience and impacts, but it also is about emissions, because we have a lot of operations in our water and sewer and other systems. You know, they're in large portions they're gravity systems, but there are pump stations all over town. And so, you know, we do have emissions that come with all those efforts and operations as well. So, you know, that ability to cut across and work with and try to connect all the dots is a big part of what Arena's brought to the table the last 2 years, and I think we can do more of and do better with.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome. Councilor St. Hilaire.
I'm all set. My questions have been answered.
Oh, okay. I would just like to briefly comment that I'm very much in support of this system, very appreciative to the donor. The city side of the budget, where staffing is concerned, has really needed additional support, and if we were going to do it, this is absolutely where I, you know, would like to see that kind of additional support. So I think it's terrific. I'm pleased to hear from Mr. Perry that the marginal cost of the the marginal cost of the city over these 3 years would be $100,000. We can absolutely afford that within the capacity of our budget. And just speaking parochially as a Ward 4 city councilor, when Ms. Keefe refers to the carriage house, it's also the case that for those of you who are around or saw it, a number of years ago, the city may have actually been either in your first term or the last term of Mayor Scanlon. The city had a consultant come in. They made a presentation down at the carriage house, or at Lynch Park at least, and they showed over time various scenarios of increased sea level, and the entire great lawn of Lynch Park essentially would be underwater, with one of the projected medium level sea rises. So we have a lot of work to do, and Ward 4 is just one of our places where we really would benefit from the work of sustainability, greater capacity in this position. So I'm fully supportive of this. If there are no other questions, I would accept a motion on this order.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries 3-0. Next item on our agenda is order number 24. This is a letter from me to the council related to the Financial Forecasting Committee. I would accept a motion to receive and place on file.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries 3-0. The next item on our agenda is order number, one moment, please. Order number 208. This is a matter relating to an appropriation of $470,775 to be placed in a fund to pay for engineering and police detail associated with the National Grid electric transmission cable project. Subcommittee members, do you have any questions for anyone here relating to this appropriation?
I'm good.
No.
If not, I would accept a motion on this order.
Motion to approve?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Next item on our agenda is order number 219. This is a grant awarded the city in an amount of $170,000 in support of acquiring 4 electric vehicle DC-FC stations for 4 ports. I believe these are called fast charging stations, if I'm not mistaken, at 11 Pond Street. I guess I would like to hear briefly from either the mayor or Ms. Keefe on this grant, just to give us some context before we move to questions. And please, other councilors, if you have questions, even though you're not in the subcommittee, just let me know if you have questions. Good evening again.
Hello again. So this grant is from the state, and we applied for $170,000 for these 4 fast charging stations at the lower level parking lot at Pond Street. And this is a municipally owned lot that for the most part sits empty. There's not a lot of usage of that space. And we became aware of the grant program and applied, I believe, in March 2021. And it took a very long time for the state to award the project to us. So we ended up getting notice of an award and securing that funding in summer of 2022. So maybe 16 months or so. And we have kind of a few avenues of getting the project installed. The first is to purchase the stations ourselves and hire a contractor to do the installation work, because these are higher voltage units. The stations themselves can charge up an electric vehicle in an hour or 2, as opposed to what we currently have downtown, which is, they're called level 2 fast charging stations. They take 6+ hours to fully charge your vehicle. So we have right now 3 stations in the downtown lots, Washington Street and the 2 Pond Street lots, and this would essentially double the presence of charging stations and kind of cater to a different audience, those who want to just stop for a bite, those who might be passing through downtown but would otherwise, and have the time to stop for coffee or go grab a bite to eat and juice up their car completely. So it's kind of catering to a different group of people. Could also be helpful to tenants, to renters, folks who can't or don't have driveways at home and the ability to charge, to just be able to hang out in a cool place downtown and charge up. So happy to take any questions on the specifics of the grant program. Otherwise, yeah, let me know.
Questions from the councilors?
I'm good.
Hearing none, I accept a motion to approve order number 219.
Make a motion to approve?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 3-0. Next item on our agenda is order 220. This is order to transfer $100,000 to perform the cleanout of the former Briscoe Middle School and preliminary engineering work related to pickleball court work at Birch Plain Fields. Any questions from the subcommittee?
No.
Hearing none, I'd accept a motion to approve.
So moved?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 3-0. Next item on our agenda is order number 244. This is also a grant, $62,575 from the Executive Office of Public Safety to support the police departments for traffic enforcement campaigns within the city to reduce vehicle accidents and loss of life in Beverly. Any questions from the members of the committee? Hearing none.
Much needed, I would just say. So
Agreed.
Glad we're receiving
all I was
this.
gonna say.
I'd make a motion to approve Order 244.
There's a second.
I would second that.
And I would also agree, one of the things we hear about the most in the city is traffic enforcement and speeding, yeah. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 3-0. And the last order on our list this evening is order number 245. This is a generous donation from the Ward 2 Civic Association, an amount of $300 to support work in the Gillis Park staircase. Any questions? If none, I would accept a motion to approve.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I would second that, just with the comment that I know the community in and around the Gillis Park area has really been eager for this work to be done, and this is a really wonderful gift from the Ward 2 Civic Association to support that work.
Yeah, agreed. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 3-0. And I believe that is our agenda for this evening. I would accept a motion to adjourn Committee of the Whole.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Accept a motion to adjourn Finance and Property.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 3-0. We are adjourned.
All right.
Never been to Acadia. Still.
We're back. We're back in session following our break from committee work. Thank you very much to everyone who stayed with us through our subcommittees and was available to our various subcommittees to answer questions and help us with our work. This brings us to reports from committees. Ms. Kent.
Order number 24 from the Committee on Finance and Property, to whom refer the matter regarding a financial forecast report, have considered said matter and report to follows. Receive and place on file.
Thank you. Questions or comments? Question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and the adoption of the order. All those in, well, to receive and place on file. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries 9-0.
Order number 208, Committee on Finance and Property, to whom referred the matter regarding an appropriation of $470,775 to be placed in a fund to pay for engineering and police detail costs associated with National Grid 115 kV electric transmission cable project. I have considered said matter. Recommend the council approve this request.
Thank you. Questions or comments? Question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and the adoption of the order. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries 9-0.
Order number 219, the Committee on Finance and Property, to whom referred the matter regarding a grant of $170,000 from the Mass EVIP to be used to acquire 4 electric vehicle DCF stations, have considered said matter and recommend the council approve the request.
Questions or comments on this one? Question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and adoption of the order. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries 9-0.
Order number 220, the Committee on Finance and Property, to whom referred the matter regarding a transfer of $100,000 to perform the final clean-out of the former Briscoe Middle School and to perform engineer work related to the construction of the pickleball court at the Birch playing fields. Have considered said matter. Recommend the council approve this request.
Questions or comments on this one? The question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and adoption of the order. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. That motion carries 8-1.
Order number 223, the Committee on Finance and Property, to whom referred the matter regarding a donation of $300,000 for 3 years in $100,000 increments for a sustainability project manager, have considered said matter and recommend the council approve this request.
Questions or comments on this one? Question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and the adoption of the order. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. That motion also carries 8-1.
Order number 244, the Committee on Finance and Property, to whom refer the matter regarding a municipal road safety program grant of $62,575 from the Executive Office of Public Safety and Security Office of Grants and Research. Have considered said matter and recommend the council approve this request.
Questions or comments on this one? Question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and adoption of the order. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries 9-0.
Order 245, the Committee on Finance and Property, of whom refer the matter regarding a $300 donation from the Ward 2 Civic Association to support the Gillis Park staircase. Have considered said matter and recommend the council approve this request.
Questions or comments on this one? Councilor Rand.
Thank you very much. I sing the praises of the Civic Association all the time. They're really active and have applied to a number of CPC grants. And this one in particular has taken, I think they applied to it in 2019, which I know a lot of things happened also around that time, but I would love to see this $300 donation be the catalyst for maybe an update, like as a council, we could request an update from Director Doig to come in and tell us how that project is moving forward. I think that would be a really meaningful gesture for in kind of response to this wonderful donation.
Thank you very much, Councilor Rand, and we can certainly extend that invitation to Mr. Doig to come and give us that update.
Thank you.
The question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and adoption of the order. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you. Motion carries 9-0. And thank you to the Civic Association for that gift.
Order 249, the Committee on Legal Affairs, to whom referred the matter regarding a request from the city clerk for the city council to approve to raise the price of the application for a fortune teller license from $2 to $50, have considered said matter and beg leave to follow. Recommend the council approve the request.
Questions or comments on this one? Question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and adoption of the order. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries 9-0.
Order number 251, the Committee on Legal Affairs, to whom refer the matter regarding Community Preservation Committee fiscal year 2023 proposed CPA budget, have considered said matter and recommend the council approve the, set a public hearing for October 17th at 7:45 PM.
Thank you very much. Questions or comments? The question comes on the acceptance of the proposal to set that public hearing for October 17th, 7:45 PM. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Thank you. That motion carries 9-0, and that public hearing then will be at our 10:17 meeting, 7:45.
Order 253, the Committee on Legal Affairs, to whom refer the matter regarding application for a license to sell Christmas trees, have considered said matter and beg leave to report to recommend the license be granted.
Questions or comments? Just that it feels hard to believe that it's almost that time of year, as we were saying. The question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and adoption of the order. All those in favor, aye. Aye. Thank you. Motion carries 9-0.
Order number 235, the Committee on Public Services, to whom refer the matter regarding a reappointment for Mr. Mark Flagg at 36 Hale Street to serve on David Lynch Public Parks Fund, have considered said matter and beg leave to follow. Recommend the council approve this reappointment.
Questions or comments? Question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and the adoption of the reappointment. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries 9-0.
Order number 236, the Committee on Public Services, to whom refer the matter regarding a reappointment for Mr. Robert Hobbs at 245 Essex Street, Apartment 12, to serve on the Council on Aging, have considered said matter and beg leave to report as follows. Recommend the council approve the reappointment.
Questions or comments? Question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and the adoption of this reappointment. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries 9-0. And thank you to both of those folks for being willing to continue to serve. Our friend Bob.
Order number 243, the Committee on Public Services, to whom refer the matter regarding National Grid requesting a grant of location to install plastic gas main on Cabot Street between Bridge and Federal, have considered said matter and beg leave to follow. Recommend the council approve this request.
Questions or comments on this one? Question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and adoption of the order. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries 9-0. Thank you.
That's all I got.
That's all we got. All right. So just a couple of quick reminders. We did just set a public hearing for our next regular meeting. That's October 17th. That meeting itself will begin at 7 p.m. here in the chambers. The public hearing we just set on the CPC's budget is 7:45 p.m. We also, as we discussed earlier tonight, will be posting for a special meeting for public conversation around Order 237. That's Councilor St. Hilaire's order on the 3-story building and questions about Beverly and its zoning. And so that will be posted as well. And members of the public are encouraged to attend all of our meetings, but certainly that one will be a public conversation. Are there other announcements or reminders? Councilor Rotundo.
Thank you, Madam President. I just want to remind everyone that on Tuesday, October 11th, 6:30 p.m. will be the meeting to discuss the Hall-Whitaker Bridge at Beverly High School. So it's an opportunity for the public to get an update from Mass DOT, who will be at the meeting, as well as members of the mayor's team, too. So I just want to remind everyone, 6:30 p.m. at Beverly High School on October 11th.
Thank you very much, Councilor Rotundo. Definitely an important reminder for people to get that update. Any other reminders from other councilors? All right, with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries 9-0, and we are adjourned. Thank you very much to Kim in the booth. Thank you to everyone who was with us tonight. Have a good night.